roof boxes, skis, surfboards, a giant spoiler, the lowest suspension, giant front bumper, giant intakes, huge exhausts, and all that Los Santos Customs has to offer. I bet you have applied some of these before yourself. But did you know that some of these can actually make you slower? GTA has a ton of modifications. Some of them are very straightforward. Engine upgrades increase top speed and acceleration. Brakes increase braking power. Transmission makes your car shift faster. Turbo gives you a higher top speed and more acceleration. And armor makes your car more resistant to crashes. However, this is where the list of straightforward upgrades stops. There are two other groups of upgrades that I will discuss in this video. The first one is semi-straightforward upgrades that have a noticeable effect but are a bit more complex in the way of working. And the second group of upgrades I will discuss are non-straightforward upgrades. For these you really need to understand what mechanic they interact with to use them to the full potential. For our first group of modifications we have spoilers and suspension. I bet a lot of you already knew that these have an effect on the car. However, they are still worth noting as they are less straightforward as the modifications we just mentioned. First of all, spoilers. I won't go too in-depth with this as the mechanics behind this deserves their own video, but I will do a quick section on it. So in most cases adding a spoiler is very straightforward. You add it and you get more grip. It doesn't matter which spoiler option you take as they all add the same amount. Just make sure it isn't the stock one. Then secondly, when a car has an active spoiler, you don't need to add a spoiler, as the active spoiler will be the dominant factor and override the effect of any spoiler. But once again, adding a spoiler to these cars doesn't hurt. There are also downforce mechanics for a select number of cars, but this is something I will discuss in a future video as it's way too complex and not super relevant right now as you still want a spoiler upgrade. Suspension also isn't as straightforward. The first aspect is one that only matters for some cars. Some cars introduced since 2019 get better handling with the max suspension upgrade due to the handling flag, reduced body roll with suspension mods. Actually, this list is quite big as you can see here, but yes, only on cars released after 2019. A lot of these cars also get a lot of camber with the max suspension option, resulting in some of them looking quite funny, especially when in full race trim. However, in most cars, this is not the case. Applying different suspension upgrades, however, will impact how the car drives. Suspension does two things to a car. The first thing that happens when you put on lower suspension is that it will make steering response feel a tiny bit heavier. The second thing it will do, however, is put the center of mass lower. Yes, you heard that right. GTA has a mechanic which changes the center of mass of a car. But what does that even mean, change the center of mass? Essentially, the center of mass will dictate how your car will behave. This isn't just a GTA mechanic, as in real life this is also the case. If a car has a high center of mass, it tends to be more unstable and roll over easily. In real life we see this especially with SUVs that roll over easily compared to other cars. Funnily enough, electric SUVs tend to have this problem way less due to the batteries being low in the car and shifting the center of mass downwards. So high center of mass is unstable and low center of mass, as we see on sports cars, will improve stability. However, center of mass is not limited to low and high. It also shifts between front and rear. If the center of mass is in the rear, there will be more weight on the rear wheels, which will give it more grip in the back. But also can give the car understeer, because there is not enough weight on the front tires. Understeer means that when going to a corner, the front tires won't grip enough and you will go straight instead of turning. The opposite can also happen when the center of mass is in the front. Your front tires will have enough grip and you will steer in, but if the rear has too little grip, you will oversteer, which will result with the back end stepping out, which will either lose you speed or you will end up spinning. Okay, but let's get back to modifications. So we know suspension can lower the center of mass, but suspension is not the only modification that can do it. Essentially all modifications affect it. The most important aspect is the hitbox. This means a large spoiler will have a bigger hitbox, so it will move the center of mass further back than a smaller spoiler option. The same goes for front and rear bumpers. And also things like roof boxes will add a lot of weight to the top of the car due to the big hitbox. One of the most important upgrades you should consider when adjusting your car with these parts is neon lights. They are very low on the car and will, compared to a lot of other parts, change the center of mass quite a lot. So equipping full neons can be a good habit, as having a lower center of gravity will make your car more stable. You can also opt for only back or front neons, if you also want to change the center of mass towards the front or rear. In the end, these changes won't make you outright faster. However, they will help you with consistency and might make some cars you currently don't like a bit easier to handle and more fun to drive. To demonstrate this, I will show you 4 runs. One is using a setup where I equipped a bunch of modifications towards the front, one with modifications towards the back, one with a high center of gravity, and one with a low center of gravity. The last modification I want to quickly touch upon are tires. A lot of you know that off-road tires can have an effect on a car. However, there are actually a bunch of other tires that make a difference when it comes to your car's handling. If you want to know all about this, go check out my previous video. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I also hope you learned something. If there are any more questions you have about the details of GTA 5, don't be afraid to ask them in the comments. Once again, if you want to know all about tires, don't forget to check out this video. And also, don't forget to subscribe.